Just to make it interesting. Awesome. Okay, welcome everyone. Good morning. My name's Michaela. I'm from the marketing team here at MasterStart, and we're here to start off a really awesome and exciting session. So we're going to have a couple of minutes just to welcome everybody and make sure that we're all together. So as we join, please pop a hello in the chat. We want to see where you're from. Give us a wave, give us a hi. It is a beautiful sunny day here in Cape Town, but as of course we know, load shedding is a reality. So what we're going to be doing is just giving a bit of an alert. So both Amena and I have load shedding at 10 o'clock. If we do clock off, it's just for a couple of seconds while the UPSs get started, and we will reconnect. So don't worry, don't fret. We are really looking forward to this session. So here with me is Amena. She'll give a bit of a wave. Hi, Amena. And she is here to give us an awesome session. There we go. I'm doing a little tongue twister there for us all together. So before we get started and we launch in, I really want to, again, take a space and say thank you for joining us here this morning. And to just give you a bit more background on what we're up to with the series, and then I'll hand over the reins to our lovely speaker this morning. So really what we're trying to do here, and I think we can all agree, is we are facing one of the most turbulent times here in South Africa and the world. And I think coming into Women's Month, we really wanted to do something special. And so as a team, we thought we wanted to share the stories of incredible women like Amena here today. And we want to invite you all to listen, to share your thoughts, to share with your friends and your colleagues, and to really hold the space together. I think one of the most powerful forms of connection is in storytelling and in learning from each other. So we are really looking forward to holding the space, to asking questions. So once we're finished with our introductions, I will hand over to Amena. Once Amena has finished with her chat, we will have a fantastic Q&A. We'll make use of the chat on the right-hand side of your screen. There will be a few interactions during the session. There will be a poll or two that'll pop up. So please make sure that you interact with us. We do really love your feedback. Yeah, we'll have a fantastic session. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Amena.
Thank you. Okay, let me just do the share of screen and hopefully get it right.
There we go.
Are we all good?
Fantastic. We are good to go.
Okay, thank you, Michaela, and hello to everyone. So thank you so much, firstly, to MasterStart for having me. It really is such a pleasure to be here, to be part of this awesome initiative. But I think more importantly for me, to be talking about a topic that I really feel passionate about. So yeah, without further ado, let's kick off. Yeah, I think I've probably been kicked off. Oh no, my lights are still there. So if I do lose connection, as Michaela mentioned, just hang 10 and I'll probably be back in a few seconds. Great. So I'm Amena. And as a young South African, so yes, I still deem myself as young, my career and employment journey trajectory has probably not taken the most traditional route. I've had quite a few interesting twists and turns. And so I thought it's quite appropriate looking at the topic we're talking about today, having been a young South African graduate and also not had the most traditional career. I'll start off just giving you some insight into that and kicking off the conversation so that you also have a little bit of an understanding of where I'm coming from. So to start off, you probably would never have guessed this, but the first step in my career actually kicked off with chef school. And so my first love in life was always food, whether it was growing it, creating it, feeding people, and really just appreciating the value behind it and enjoying it. And so I actually did a chef's diploma and became a qualified chef after matric. And after that, I went on to UCT, completed my undergrad in organizational psych and a postgrad in marketing management. And I was really fortunate because straight out of university, I landed what was my dream job at that time. And I joined a massive multinational FMCG company on the graduate program. And I was really fortunate because this experience gave me global experience. I worked in the UK business, but I also worked in the South African business. And I developed here strong HR business partnering experience, graduate recruitment experience, as well as employer branding. And I think the biggest element from this whole experience at a big multinational was really around developing this passion to work with young people, especially when I was in the graduate recruitment space. But it also was the moment in my career where sort of like started ticking in my brain that there's a lot of work to be done within South Africa in the employability space, and I want to be part of this. So there was something over there that started this fuel in me while part of this corporate journey. And so I left the UK and I actually decided I need to figure out what this is. And so I made a bit of a shift and I moved into higher education. And now sitting on the other side of the table with the perspective of corporate, but being able to leverage that insight and support young people in navigating their careers. So I managed a careers department at GSB, but I also completed my coaching qualification at that time, and so became a qualified career development and leadership development coach. And this was quite a significant point in my career because it really established that love and passion for supporting young people and young leaders in navigating what's next. I then was called by love back to the UK. And being in a first world country, I was very fortunate to be exposed to an opportunity where I could work for a global tech giant in the UK. And I grabbed this opportunity because I wanted to become future forward and upskill in a skill set that I knew would pave the way for the future. And so I was then at this global tech giant as an e-commerce analyst, which was phenomenal, and developed a new skill set, which I use every single day. Sorry, I think that was load shedding. Where I am today is really where my heart and soul connects. And that is in the youth development sector back in South Africa, where I feel I'm truly living my purpose and doing my little bit in transforming the landscape of opportunity for South African youth. Michaela, can you still hear me?
I can indeed. I can, Amena.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, cool. Okay, so how did I get here? I'm sure, many of you might be asking yourselves. And so definitely I took the non-traditional scenic route. And I like to think of my career as quite a fluid career. So I definitely did not know where I was going when I embarked on it. But I really focused more on developing experiences and skills, without necessarily knowing the end destination, but knowing that there was some purpose that I was chasing. And so why I'm sharing all of this with you today is to really set the context of the conversation, because I was a very confused 17-year-old matriculant. And even though, honestly, I was incredibly blessed and I was never short of opportunity, support, but I still walked out very overwhelmed. I still walked out of matric very confused. And I was fortunate to have the support to, be able to go and chase a passion like chef's course, because I knew I loved to cook. But very soon after being in the industry for a year, I did build a backbone. I built incredible resilience. I worked really hard, but I realized it was killing my soul. And, at that point, I realized this isn't a career for me. But I had the privilege of choice and opportunity at that point. And I could then further my studies and explore more. But unfortunately, this isn't the reality for majority of South Africa. And so I think it was this insight that really made me, I think, like lit a fire in me, really, because this insight of lack of opportunity and choice is the reality of majority of South Africa, but also has led me to really want to foster more awareness on this topic. Because if I was a confused, overwhelmed matriculant with privilege, with choice, with resource, with role models and a social capital network, I wonder every day how majority of South Africans who don't have that opportunity, navigate their careers. And so I think today a huge part of this discussion is really to get you to start thinking in each of our capacities, whether we, are leaders today or future leaders, whether we are involved in recruitment or not involved in recruitment, what can we do today to shift this needle, and to really challenge our thinking and perspective on traditional ways of recruitment from the lens of the South African context. So our first interaction, and so I'm going to ask Michaela to support me here and be my eyes on the ground, but I'd really like to know who in the room has been involved in early careers or graduate recruitment. So if you could complete the poll, and then Michaela, you can just give me an indication of what it's looking like.
Oh, we have people filling in already.
Okay.
There we go, guys. It should appear at the bottom of your screen. Awesome. Okay, it seems like the majority it's early days. There's at least 30 of you on the call, so let's give you a couple of seconds. It's early days, but at least 65% of people are saying that they haven't been involved.
Haven't. Okay.
14, 15. Okay, so it's climbing. So it seems like we're swaying towards the I haven't been involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
wonderful.
it's jumping. 72%. Okay, so I think the majority of people haven't been involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. But for those of you who have, the next question is really for you. And so I hope we get a few answers here. And so I really want to know, or anyone who has maybe not directly been involved, but been perhaps part of discussions within your organizations around graduate recruitment, which of these statements resonates most with you? So the first one being, it's easy to find well-rounded quality South African graduate talent. It's challenging finding young South African talent that are culture fit. Youth today are unprofessional and too ambitious. It's not worth investing in a graduate program, as they will leave for better jobs after you've invested in them. And I rank softer skills as more important than qualifications in South African young talent. So if you can contribute to this, I'd really appreciate it. But these are all,
Just giving it a second there. Amena, can you hear me? All right, let's ask the people in the chat. Can you guys hear me as well? Give me a thumbs up so I know you guys are still there. Cool, Graham saying yes. Okay, so give me a second. I will pop right back up. Seems like Amena has just stopped. It might have been her lurching. Let's give it a second. So let's continue that interactions, guys. Let's answer those questions, those statements about which of the topics resonate with you most, which of the sentences. I see a lot of people are leaning towards I rank soft skills are more important than qualifications. And yep. So we'll give Amena a couple minutes just to reconnect, not to worry. Okay. Give us a second. Okay, awesome. Keep going. Okay, thank you so much, guys, for interacting. We really appreciate it. Keep it going as we continue through the session. We're just going to try and reconnect Amena, so we'll give her a couple of minutes. give us a couple more minutes, guys. Thank you so much for your patience. Just going to give Amena a call quickly.
Okay, cool. Hello, can everyone hear me again?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that.
No worries.
It was literally load shedding and it came through a little bit late, so I'm just going to continue. Do you want
We'll
to
call it a dramatic pause. It's okay. A deep breath.
Do you want to just update me with how we ended off on the poll?
Of course, of course. So on our second poll, so which of the statements resonates with you most? So we had 7% of people say that the first did. We have 39% of people say that the second. 11% said the youth today are unprofessional and too ambitious. 11% as well said it's not worth investing in a graduate program. But it seems like the winner for 54% is I rank softer skills as more important than qualifications in South African young talent, which is
amazing.
I think leaning towards what we're going to chat about, but I will hand it back to you. That's really exciting.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you all for your contribution. And I'm so glad that there's, such a mix of experiences, because this is exactly why we're here today. And it's really to talk about how complex our environment is and how, depending on your organization, where you are on that, the youth talent recruitment process creamed, you may be at a different point, and so experience is different. But I think the landscape that we are operating in is so complex, and there is no one size of shoe fits all. So it's okay to have experienced different things, but I think today is really about thinking out of the box, challenging your perspective, and really walking out with perhaps new ideas on how you could shift your approach so that you are better equipped to tackle the South African youth market. So I'm hoping that, you more than anything, you'll just have some food for thought. So if we go into 2023, okay, so who are you hiring today? And this really speaks to our Gen Z, and these are digital natives. So from a South African context, they are the born-free generation, generally born from mid-1990s to the mid-2010s. And so in South Africa, they were born at the end of apartheid and really grew up in a democratic South Africa. So members of Gen Z in South Africa are often characterized by, yes, being tech savvy, socially and politically aware, and active, also highly diverse. So they are actually the most racially and ethnically diverse generation within South Africa. And because of this, they tend to be a little bit more tolerant, a little bit more accepting of different cultures than previous generations. But in saying that, also a lot more inclusive. So something that we're all aware of is that in South Africa, we have various different types of challenges. So, there are growing unemployment rates, there's socioeconomic issues, there's inequality. And the upside of this is that it has allowed our youth to become very resilient. They are creative, and they also are natural problem solvers. And so because they have been given this freedom to think, the freedom to act, many of them have a strong commitment to social justice, for example. They are not shy or scared of having their voice heard or their opinion heard. And so that just gives you a high level view of who Gen Z is. But now digging into actually what are their strengths. So obviously, these are stereotypes, could be stereotypes, but also more generalized perspectives. But it really is to give you a high-level view of what is this generation about. So yes, they are tech savvy, which we've spoken about. They've grown up with technology being an integral part of their lives. It's very, very rare where you'll find a young person today without some sort of device in their hand or without earpods in their ears. And so they use it to connect in every way. One of the aspects to consider here is this has actually allowed them to become very easy to multitask. So they've developed the skill as a secondary sort of strength to multitask because of this, because they're constantly fed with information all the time. And so they can go through an article or listen to a video, quickly analyze the information, and choose what to accept and what to let go of. So they're tech savvy, but they're also natural multitaskers. Secondly, our Gen Zs are adaptable. So because they have grown up in a world of rapid change, uncertainty, COVID fed this as well, they really are adept to adapting to new situations and challenges. And so this allows them to be more flexible, open-minded, and resilient, and able to navigate complexity, uncertainty. And then also the entrepreneurial mindset comes through. So they have a general entrepreneurial spirit with a desire to make a difference in this world and to create their own opportunities. So a lot of them will not hold back from having a side gig or start their own business and, really look at non-traditional career paths where they can add value. And so this also leads to and is connected to being optimists. So Gen Zs have this innate belief that I can make a difference in this world. If I try, I can change the world. And so they have a general optimistic view on life. And, they know that they can add value to this world. This also speaks to them being self-starters. So they don't necessarily stick to the formal routes of acquiring knowledge, but they actually find creative ways to educate themselves and use different, media channels, different resources to learn new skills. Think about YouTube, the power that brings to being able to learn how to code, how to use Excel, how to cook, how to develop an artisanal skill. So they've got these resources and they use that, they leverage off that to really initiate and create. So on the flip side of this coin, what are their gaps? And so the first one is really communication skills. So as much as they have been brought up in the age of social media, digital communication all around them, they actually really struggle with communication skill, particularly face-to-face. I know with many of my young interns, when I ask them to call, say, a hotel or a conference venue, to inquire about availability, I've had so many interactions where they're like, can I rather WhatsApp? So that face-to-face engagement has actually now become a challenge. And with that, then, the skill of active listening, being able to express ideas clearly, does become a challenge. Then the softer skills, which I know is a big discussion point. And so this speaks to the fact that, yes, they might be very technically skilled, but has that actually, drawn a wall then to developing that emotional intelligence? You fed all this information, but how do I declutter? How do I problem solve? If it's easy to Google everything or use chatbots or use ChatGPT, how do I critically think and analyze information is also, one of the fears around how our young people are developing that. So this is also an interesting one, traditional professionalism. So many Gen Zs actually have limited exposure to what we call or term professionalism and workplace norms. So there are quite a few of them who started their work journeys during COVID, meaning they were behind a screen. But it also, in general, we find that Gen Zs they question the norm. So what we, as older generations, might seem this is how you should dress appropriately, they don't necessarily want to stick to that norm. I'm sure many of you have seen the little video clips going around, how a Gen Z would sign off an email. This is real. To say "see you on the flip side" might not be a second thought for Gen Z, and so again speaks to that traditional professionalism that we may expect. This is also an interesting one, deep industry specific knowledge. So because our Generation Z are they like to explore skill sets, how they can develop general knowledge. They don't necessarily focus on a specific industry. So they are more looking at developing skills that are transferable, future fit, versus looking at how do I develop skills for a specific industry that's going to lead me to a specific career path. And then finally, they are easily distracted. So this could be because of various reasons, the fact that they've got so many options, they can develop their own careers, they're optimists. And so many companies are finding and employers are finding that they lack the ability to stay committed. And so if there is another opportunity or this company that they're working for is not working for them, they'll leave because they are optimistic in that they'll find something else or they'll build something else. They'll develop their own career. And so while that might not be the reality, it is a challenge that we faced with when it comes to this generation. So this is all great from the perspective of, who Gen Zs are in general. But when we zone in on the South African Generation Z, this is where, it becomes really relevant for our conversation today. So we are all aware of the VUCA world. I think we've all heard it over and over again, so I'm not going to harp too much on it. But, and many of us have even been introduced to Bob Johansson's VUCA 2.0. which builds on the original concept of, this a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. But it also then adds on the skills and competencies that are going to be required to succeed in the VUCA world. And I think from a South African perspective, we actually should be looking at VUCA 3.0. And the reason behind that is, our complexities are just growing. And so VUCA, speaks to, on the left-hand side, that is what it stands for. And then the 2.0 is what are the capabilities that you require in order to succeed in this VUCA world. And so vision, it's the ability to anticipate and envision future possibilities. This is a challenge for many South African Gen Zs because with everything going on around them, it is so difficult for them to remain motivated, for them to look at their circumstances that might be getting worse, might not be changing. And so for them, vision is quite difficult in the current complex world that they're in. Understanding. So this is the ability to comprehend complex environment, diversity, and to find your interconnectedness within it. So fortunately, this is a strength of our Gen Zs. And because they are born free, they automatically have that lens of diversity and building connections and inclusive mindset. So this is really where they are strong. And then clarity is the ability to communicate and, make sense of complex information. So yes, communication is already a challenge for our Gen Zs. From a South African perspective, we still still have language barriers. So unfortunately, this actually is something that a lot of work needs to be done on from building this capability, because accessibility to data, for example, forms a massive challenge from a communication perspective, because something we don't often think about is, if you don't have data, how do you communicate? If you don't have access to Wi-Fi, how do you communicate? So language barrier, access, all feeds into this being a challenge. Then finally, agility. This is actually a strength. So as mentioned before, our South African young generation have been forced to innovate, to adapt to circumstances out of their control. And so they are natural problem solvers and creators. And so when I mentioned VUCA 3.0, what I was speaking about is actually adding on resilience and inclusivity. So these are both real strengths of our new generation. And the reason I say that, think about load shedding today. A young person gets pushed to stage 6 a night before their exams. What are they meant to do? They have to bounce back. They have to make it work. They have to be able to succeed. And so they problem solve on point. And so South African Gen Zs are innately resilient, and because of the circumstances have built this capability that we need to start recognizing. The same thing with inclusivity. This is a skill set that doesn't come easily to many communities, but in South Africa it is a strength, and something that we need to start recognizing. So this is a picture that depicts the world we live in, the skill sets that we are required to succeed in this complex world, and then adding on our 3.0 elements of skills that allow us to succeed as South African youth. But something that every South African young person still needs, but is a challenge, is social capital. And so social capital speaks to your networks, the people who can connect you, the opportunities that you have. And this is something that we all need to, pay it forward with. We need to think about, how are we supporting young people to develop social capital? We are still living in an environment where this is a privilege, and there are huge generational gaps. And so if there are no mentors, role models in majority of young people's lives from a professional perspective, how are they meant to develop professionalism? How are they meant to improve in professional communication, work readiness, the skills we take for granted that young people should have? This is something that I want you all to start thinking about, and ask yourself, how do I support a young person in developing social capital? So to bring this to life, I thought I'd take you through a quick case study to really conceptualize the realities of this generation, but also the diversity in opportunity that you can have within one group. So I'd like you to meet two of my friends. And so these friends of mine, the first one is Samantha and the second one is Lulu. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into each of their lives. So Samantha was born in 2000. She matriculated in 2017 from a public under-resourced township school with 2 A's and 4 B's in matric. She was a NSFAS funded recipient, and she studied business science at UCT, and she'll be graduating at the end of this year. She's the first in her family to matriculate and go to university, and she lives 25 kilometers from UCT in an RDP house with her grandmother, 2 younger siblings, and 1 cousin. Her grandmother's 60 years old. She's still a domestic worker. Samantha unfortunately lost both her parents at a young age, and she's never left Cape Town. Sam is an A student at university, and she's applied for a Future Leaders graduate program at XYZ company. I'm now going to introduce you to Lulu. So Lulu too is born in 2000. She matriculated in 2017 from a semi-private or ex-Model C school with 6 A's. She's self-funded for her studies, and she's also studying a business science at GCT, who will be graduating at the end of this year. She's from the second generation in her family to pursue tertiary education. She lives in a family-owned home with a nuclear family. She lives 5 kilometers from UCT. Her father is a senior manager at a bank, and her mother is a stay-at-home mom with her 2 younger siblings. Lulu is fortunate to be able to travel internationally annually with her family. And Lulu is also an A student at university and has also applied for this opportunity as a Future Leaders grad at XYZ company. So having the perspective of both Sam and Lulu, I want you to take a few minutes just to think, and we won't share our answers, but maybe you want to write a few thoughts down and just to really try and challenge your thinking and think about who, if you had to look at these 2 candidate profiles, so looking at Sam and looking at Lulu, who do you think is a stronger candidate? Who do you think, just on face value, who would be the stronger candidate of the 2? I then want you to look at which advantages do you think each of them have and what do they bring to the table? What disadvantages do each of them have? So where do you feel their gaps would be and what they'd struggle with? So if you were a hiring manager for a company thinking about, an entry-level job on a graduate program, so where you do want to hire your cream of the crop, where you see future leadership potential, that's generally what your traditional grad programs are designed for. What disadvantages do you think each of them have? And then thirdly, how will each of their individual stories and circumstances support them during your recruitment process? So think about the fact that they do come from various different backgrounds, but how will those individual circumstances support them as they go through your recruitment process? So I'm just going to remind you of their profiles again. So I'll just put Lulu's on for a few seconds and then I'll go on to Samantha's. And I just want you to think about that. Okay, so I'm conscious of time because I know we lost a few minutes. So this is a summary of the 2 of theirs. So I'm not going to go through it again. And looking at your reflections, I now want you to really challenge your thinking. So something to remember is there is no right or wrong perspective over here. The reason we are sharing this is really for you to think of recruitment, think in the context of Gen Z, think in the context of the South African context, how you can adapt your thinking beyond how you'd naturally. So looking at these 2 circumstances from the top, try and ask yourself, so could Sam's ability be just as good, but due to attending an under-resourced school, not done as well? Okay, so that's just something to think about. Secondly, think about the role professional role models and networks played in your own lives. That's an example of social capital. So this, speaks to your supper table conversations. It speaks to the fact that, you could, or I could have had relatives, siblings, parents who were professionals, trained professionals, and the impact that those conversations had on my ability to start making career decisions from early on in life. So that's also something to think about. When you look at access and you look at, how far you need to travel, if there's a strike with taxis, which actually was meant to happen today in town, or protest, the candidate like Sam may not be able to get to campus. This means she misses out and would have to put extra effort in to catch up. Yet Sam is still an A student And so something we don't always think about is ease of access is actually a huge privilege. Then you look at the family circumstances and living circumstances. Reality is that candidates such as Sam might be playing a massive role in supporting their younger siblings. So she's living with her grandmother. Her grandmother works full-time as a domestic worker. Her grandmother's 60 years old. Sam might be helping her younger siblings and cousin with homework, getting them to and from school, walking from the taxi rank, etc. Doesn't this build skills of accountability and responsibility from a young age? This may not be on her CV, but if you dig into her story, these capabilities, which are the softer skills that many Gen Zs are lacking, actually, Sam has developed without it being official. Okay. And then if you look at never having left Cape Town and being able to have traveled internationally, undoubtedly experiencing other countries' cultures and seeing the world does enhance one's outlook on life. And so, yes, Lulu will probably have this expanded knowledge, but that could also be due to, her circumstances, which absolutely she should be, merited on. But it's just the lens to say, have other candidates not necessarily had that same opportunity? And then finally, if there was only one position left at your company, how do their individual stories and experiences differentiate them? And I think that for me is really what I want you to think about. So you're going to always have a pool of talent. You're always going to have young people from various different backgrounds. But my challenge to all of you is really to think beyond the black and white. And so as leaders, what can we do to help our South African youth succeed? The key message is I really want you to start thinking about developing an inclusive lens. So look beyond the professionalism bias that we are all groomed to look out for. Those professionalism biases that I talk about is what we think is the norm, where, Generation Z has challenged this. So Gen Z in general struggle with professionalism and communication. And beyond that, look at, instead of changing them, look at where their strengths lie. Majority of South African Gen Zs would not have had the privilege of professional role models. They're starting from scratch. So remember that. From an inclusive perspective, remember where they're coming from. And in many cases, a lower grade should not be assessed at face value, but with context of what it took to achieve that grade. So when we look at the first layer, the fact that Samantha achieved 2 A's and 4 B's, whereas Lulu achieved 6 A's, something to think about is the fact that, there was Sam attended an under-resourced school. She may not have had teachers for every subject, might have had to self-learn. Is that a true indication of her ability? Or if she had every resource available to her, how would she have, fared then? So I'm not saying that we need to compromise on quality or compromise on, marks, but I think we need to look deeper. And we need to also think of if you are seeing certain trends on your psychometric assessments. So a candidate looks great on paper, but they do the psychometric test, and all of a sudden you're seeing a certain demographic or certain group of people fall out because numeracy, literacy, it just isn't where it needs to be. Look deeper than that. Sometimes foundational maths and literacy play such an important role in how you are able to do in those type of assessments. And so if you look deeper than that and look at their circumstances, look at where they're coming from, you sometimes will get a different perspective, but you can also look at competencies that don't come through in black and white. And then secondly, look beyond their formal CVs and listen to their stories. So Gen Zs, as previously shared, are self-starters with an entrepreneurial mindset. The reality is that majority of South African youth have a side hustle. This tells us that they are opportunity finders, natural risk takers, and solution makers. These are generally all characteristics that many of our organizations and industries seek. So my final point is really that in many of their struggles or circumstances, there are actually skills like resilience and adaptability. So dig that out. And the only way you're going to do that is to listen to their stories. So where you see potential, dig deeper. And a lot of the time, you're going to see a lot of those characteristics that we spoke about, looking at a VUCA 3.0 world that, South Africa speaks to in many ways. So my final slide, and really the question I want to leave with all of you today, is going back to your organizations. How are you going to transform your thinking and approach to early careers graduate recruitment? So even if you haven't embarked on it before, going into it, and when you are now given that opportunity to contribute to early careers or graduate recruitment, how has your mind set shifted, and what is the opportunity for you to bring about change in transforming the approach within your organizations? Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. Michaela, are we all good?
We are all good. Thank you so much. That was a phenomenal session. I have so many notes. My notebook cannot contain the squiggles and the connections on the page.
I can see you all again. And once again, apologies for the technical glitch.
Absolutely no worries. So I think, guys, on the right-hand side of your screen, please make use of the chat to give your thanks. And also, if you've got any questions, we have another couple minutes just to pose a few to Amena here today. And I mean, I'll get the session started. I think what was incredible was specifically your talk, and again, what resonated with me was the supper table conversations, those things that we take for granted. I think often we go, well, I don't really have a network. I sit here and I don't really think I have access to all this knowledge and information. And I think it is, as you say, that one of the gaps is that that basis isn't there. So I really loved the supper table conversation analogy. I really liked it. And I think I would ask you, I suppose I'd ask you the question, like, how, if you can think of your own experience, what is that impact for someone who has been given access, in your professional space, and do you have, I suppose, any tidbits or thoughts of people who want to share their access but have no idea how to? Like, where do I go? Do I start a WhatsApp group? Do I go on Facebook? How do we even begin this? Yeah, that's my question, just to start it off.
Great. So thank you so much for that question. And it's something I get all the time. And it's always such a great realization to see how many people want to contribute, but you don't know where to start. So the first thing is, just do a Google search, volunteer mentorship, South African youth mentor. And there are so many organizations looking for volunteers. What I'll do is afterwards, I will share a list of them with you, and awesome. We can share them with the participants. But, yes. So guest speakers, doing webinars like this, being able to create your own content and share it on your LinkedIn with any expertise, any tips and tools. As I said, this generation is online. They will find it. And so we all have that power to share. LinkedIn is an incredibly powerful tool, and the amount of information you can share on there, but also using different media tools. So if you are a big person, you want to do a little video of your top 3 tips to nail an interview within your industry, do that. That is all your opportunity to give back and to actually contribute to this social capital.
No, I think that's incredible. I think that the power of sharing, we have access to so many social media platforms. It's there at our fingertips. So just to, if anybody has that question, our session is recorded. You will be able to come back and review it. You will get an email tomorrow with that link. So do not worry, do not fret if you joined a bit late. Someone says, could you share some resources on training, professionalism, and communication? Don't worry or don't fret. That's where MasterStart comes in. We also have some amazing courses, and we're really, really proud of our new courses coming out on power skills. We're sort of trying to change the narrative. They're not soft skills at all. I'm sure all of us have faced them. They are power skills. So have a look at our website for more information on that, Lamise. And Graham actually has a question for you. In support of the graduates or youth entering a business, what in your experience is a good place to start in tackling these challenges faced to help those inherent soft skills that they have come to the surface?
Absolutely. So, what I find is a lot of them actually have these untapped soft skills. So we spoke about the fact that many South African young people have resilience. That is a soft skill, but they don't realize they've got resilience. And so that is our role as leaders, as managers, for them to uncover that, for them to realize that through their stories, I have developed resilience. So I'll give you an example. I have had a young person who I've worked with who used to sell fruit and vegetables on the side of the road after school, so that she would have supper every night. Okay. And the reason she did that was because she had younger siblings. She lived with her gogo, her grandmother, and she couldn't rely on her grandmother's grant, And so for me, that built accountability, that built responsibility for then the super privileged graduate that I generally recruit for a graduate program. That is life skill and soft skills that are just unrealized. So that's the one perspective. The second one is, yes, Gen Zs do struggle with various different soft skills. And I think that is where coaching conversations come in. So it's not just about giving them feedback to say, you didn't respond to that email correctly, but ask them to think about it from a different perspective, give them an alternative, coach them, and spend that time in developing it as their manager or as their co-worker. So I think it's twofold. I think the first thing is with many of our youth, it's just unrealized. And then secondly, looking holistically as a gap for the Generation Z, it's a we need to harness our coaching skills. We need to harness our leadership to lead them in that direction and make them aware of it.
Yeah, I really love that. Reframing the story for a lot of young people is vital to understanding that the journey doesn't just stop with a qualification or with that big job. And I think, like, even for myself, just thinking about the ways in which I reflect on my own story, and I suppose everyone will sit here and think about their connections and their networks, and as we go forth from the session, just the power of just reframing that narrative, reframing that story.
Absolutely.
So Kevin says, perhaps interview questions should be relooked at to include and delve into power skills. I really do believe that we are, as you put it, just looking at the surface during employment processes. That's a really good shout, Kevin. Oba King says, totally agreed, Amena. I've been working in an insurance company in the servicing area for the past 10 years. I've recently got introduced to Microsoft Power Apps and created a groundbreaking app for self-learning for one of our departments. Offering an opportunity for us to explore these skills is very vital, or is very vital. Yes, I agree. That's an awesome story, Oba Kim. Thank you so much for sharing.
I can actually give you an example that I experienced recently too. So I work with lots of young people, and one of them were volunteering at a public sector site where their system was malfunctioning, and it was 3 months, 4 months, and operations were actually put to a halt, and they had to do everything manually. And so this young person decided, I can learn to code, I can develop an app. They signed up for boot camp, online, free. They developed an online app which actually solved the solution for this system break, and it's now being rolled out to every public sector site like this within the Western Cape.
That's incredible.
And they've been acknowledged. And so as I mentioned, they are self-starters. They are tech natives, but they are also innovative with what they do, with that access.
Yeah.
And so just like Oba King, we're seeing that come through. They are problem solvers and creators. And so using that knowledge in an effective way does come naturally to them.
Yeah. And I think that's so awesome to hear of stories like that. And I think the more, and this is a shout to me as well, like the more we share stories that we know, and the more that we share in the joy of telling these incredible breakthroughs for young people in our channels, just tagging them on social and going, did you guys see this? This is incredible. Giving support, even if it isn't a mentorship program, but just giving space to those, who don't necessarily have the platform. That's an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing, Amena. So guys, as we have the last couple minutes, I want to invite you to put your last questions, thoughts, comments in the chat. Just to repeat that the session is recorded, so do not fret. We will be able to share this link with you after the session has finished. But as we wrap up, I just want to say a great big thank you from all of us at MasterStart to you, the audience, and a huge thank you to Amena, our first speaker of the series. It has been eye-opening. It has been challenging. I have about 5 million notes. My boss is not ready. So we are really excited to have had such an awesome session. Thank you again to the audience for your patience. Load shedding will be load shedding. We're just here in South Africa doing what we need to do. And yeah, it has been an incredible time, and keep your eyes peeled for the next ones coming. But again, thank you so much, Amena. You are incredible. Thank you for sharing your story. It is a powerful one.
Amazing.
And yeah, any last thoughts or comments before we end off the session?
Wonderful. No, it's been such a pleasure. So thank you for the opportunity. And anyone, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if anything, comes to mind afterwards. I'm always happy to engage. Okay, somebody's asked, what did I study after leaving a chef job? Okay, so interestingly enough, through working various different events during chef school and functions, I was introduced to the career path of talent management, HR. HR we always thought of as just payroll and admin, but I met somebody which increased my social capital network, right? And I was super intrigued. And so I actually studied a business science in organizational psych afterwards. But again, I didn't last throughout the business science. I then I did the introductory courses to org psych, and then I was introduced to economics. And I was like, oh no, I love this so much. I can't just, do the introductory courses. And so I switched my degree to Bachelor of Social Science so I could have a double major of economics and org psych. So I did quite a general degree, which gave me a good high-level overview of the world, macroeconomics, microeconomics, but then also, I think the people element has always been my passion. And so that's org psych came in and really delving into understanding the human mind and behavior within the workplace.
Yeah. No, I think that's fascinating, and I think it is about sharing that story, right? I think at face value, if someone had to read your bio, they'd be like, I wonder what that journey was. And again, just to reiterate, Amina's point, when you're looking at your new candidates and graduates, just listen to the story and really delve deeper and try and reframe and reflect it back to those who are applying to jobs, who are first in the market, and share your insight. There is no telling what that little circle of influence does. It's that ripple effect in the pond. If I drop a pebble of knowledge, I don't know how far that's going to go for someone who really needs it. So it has been an incredible session. I'm going to say thank you again from all of us at MasterStart, and we really wish you luck and all the best.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to wave. I wave at the end of every session to make it weird. Bye, guys.